talking about IoT and how I and Pressac see this becoming a fundamental part of an intelligent building solution. I'm going to sort of go through the journey and position where we think sort of IoT sits within that overall framework. So generally, our view is, we go into the mooring that this is very much a destination. It's a journey to go somewhere. You can't immediately install a load of kit in a building or deploy sensor solutions and all sorts of and get achieve your goal. It's
your attention, please. Seminar sessions are about to commence in the seminar theatres. The seminar sessions are about to commence in the seminar theatres. Thank you.
So it's very much a journey where you consider a solution, you deploy an approach, and then you work and you see how it's achieving its goal, and then you see what the outputs are, and you sort of move on from there. Now, there is this OODA loop, which some of you may be familiar with, may have heard of, developed initially by a US Air Force captain called Colonel John Boyd. It was developed initially for military tactics, but it's been adopted very much for business and commercial strategies. And the concept of it is really, really straightforward. And it supports an intelligent building solution, definitely the use of IoT really, really well, in that you start with observing. You've got to see what's going on, whether you're flying a fighter jet or running a building or deciding on a business strategy. You need the information, you need the data. You can't make an uninformed choice. So you have to observe the environment, you have to see what the information is telling you. And obviously that's where IoT comes into its own. You can assess and analyze all these different parameters within an environment. Orient means that you get that data, you make use of it, you start to understand it, you put it into dashboards, you help provide that consultancy, and you determine what it's telling you. And then from that, you make decisions. Based on the data, you make that business intelligence driven decision. Nobody would make a decision around business without seeing all the parameters first. From an intelligent building perspective, all of the information that the systems and the IoT captures and presents to you allows you to decide on the best approach. And then from the ACT perspective, you implement it. You apply your strategy, you deploy the tech, you implement the systems, and then ultimately observe what that effect has been. And we repeat that circle. So it works really well in the considered use of the technology. When you think about what an intelligent building infrastructure looks like, this is probably going to be very familiar to a lot of you. IoT underpins everything. It's the foundation of your intelligent building platform. None of the other components, none of the other layers work if you haven't got data to feed them. They're pretty much useless. On the flip side, IoT is useless without all the other components as well. So if you think the IoT, you've got a whole layer of sensors throughout your building measuring occupancy, temperature, energy usage, whereabouts lifts are, BMS system, all these different parameters. They're all capturing data and they're pushing data across. But so what? It doesn't mean anything. The data doesn't have any value. It writes into a database, it sits in a spreadsheet, but it's sort of pointless. Data only has value if you can access it and actually make sense of it. So once you've got once you've observed and you've got your IoT, then you get your data consolidation. This is your data visualization platform. This is your BMS system. These are your application layers. This is your platform that takes that data, it visualizes it, it allows you to trend it, normalize it, you plot heat maps, you compare it to other solutions. What's the weather like? What's my occupancy like? It allows you to understand that data. That data then becomes information. Information becomes useful, and you can start trending and analysing, and that allows you to orient and then decide on your strategy. Once the information's there, you can then work out how you want to apply it, what you're expecting your success criteria to be, what value looks like from the system. So you make your decisions. From the implementation side, as we say, that guides your strategy, that gives you the information on how you want your building to react. What does it want? What does it need to do in response to the stimulus that it's getting from how people are engaging with it, what the systems are doing within it, all being informed by the IoT. That data then obviously influences your BMS. You can have an agile building which reacts to its stimuli. It obviously puts in building information, you've got the thread, digital twin, all of these types of things will benefit from having that considered, understood information of a business intelligence. And then the end layer, the experience layer, this is where you get the improvements in visitor and employee experience. You get a healthy building, you get an optimised environment for people to return to work. You get an efficient building that reacts to what's going on within it. If you think the IoT providing you the information, the building telling you what's going on, this is a smart building. People throw these phrases around, but in my view, if the building's telling you what's happening within the environment, that's a smart building, which is great. If the building can then influence and affect how it provides its environment and the experience to people within it, that's an intelligent building. So if you imagine everything that's going on is being recorded, monitored and understood, platforms are applying some intelligence to it, allowing the strategy reaction, there's rules going on, we've got some AI, predicting, looking at hoteling, resourcing schedules, what's going on, so that the building can become proactive in configuring itself to deliver the end experience, and then ultimately we're monitoring how effective that has been. Has that achieved the goals and the aims that you wanted it to? This, again, may be very familiar. Arcadis did a really, really useful report recently period for applying these kind of technologies. Now, whilst I would definitely recommend going and reading their report, I have taken this extract from them. And it shows that of sort of the 11 primary technologies that are used within an intelligent building, if you can just get your head around or get to grips with energy analytics, especially in the current climate, you can achieve a huge improvement in your overall value. Now, those figures take into account the cost of deployment, operation, as well as the benefits, both from an experiential perspective and ultimately at the bottom line. So you can see you can achieve a huge amount of benefit over a 12-year period from a real estate. Obviously, IoT and these types of strategies at an enterprise level are very, very common. So for those people who are finding themselves with quite an extensive real estate portfolio where they're not unsure about how they're going to manage their return to work policy or how to get people back in the office and working from that environment, delivering this kind of effective solution means that they're getting the best out of their asset. And obviously, from an intelligent building perspective, there's a whole range of different technologies that fit in. The focus for this latter part of this is on sort of three distinct areas. And these are three areas that are quite easy to achieve and can form part of the strategy. So, at the moment, energy booking. This is obviously massively important to other people. Figures from the Energy Savings Trust suggest that around £170 million a year is wasted through lights being left on unnecessarily. If you turn those lights off, you can save like 171 kilograms of CO2 per year. Through a very, very simple process, adopting a different culture change where systems turn off. But often people don't know that lights are being left on, or they don't understand where their energy is going. So, from an energy perspective, up until the metered supply, people know their energy charge. Because it's on the bill, X number of kilowatt hours over a period, this is how much energy I'm using. But what we're finding, certainly at Pressac, is people want to go beyond that. They want to understand whereabouts across their real estate, their warehouse, their factory, their office, that energy is actually going. There's often a subjective view where people feel that certain things are using certain amounts of energy. People know that 40% typically used by heating and lighting and cooling, but we don't know for sure. So what we've got the ability to do, what IoT can do, is it can tell you where that power is going, whereabouts across your estate that's being used. Where that comes in particularly handy or helpful is when you look and consider if lights are being left on, if the heating and the cooling and the HVAC systems are set, often on a timer, to run according to a particular schedule. Often those schedules are historical and that they've always operated in a particular way. The heating comes on at 7 in the morning, it achieves a temperature of 21 degrees, it runs until 6 o'clock at night, and then it turns off again. That's great. But not if you haven't got people in the office. Not if it's a really warm day outside and you don't need to keep that. If you've got an office where doors and windows can be left open, then you're contaminating the air handling plant, and you're affecting how you're using coolant ground. But you can't do that without understanding it. Energy monitoring allows you to understand whereabouts across your entire infrastructure that energy is being used. One of the other significant benefits of this, and we've recently published a case study that documents this really quite nicely, is that once you understand what normal looks like for your energy consumption across your estate, it's very easy to then spot abnormalities. Now, a good example of this is Toyota vehicle manufacturing. There are client of ours. They put energy monitoring plants across one of their estates. They have a water farm with a number of inverters in that actually manage and clean the process of water that ultimately supports the cooling systems across their production line. They've got a big production line, lots of robots doing welding and all sorts of various things. The team that were operating this knew what normal looked like. They knew what their inverters and what the energy consumption profiles for their equipment should be. They noticed that one of the inverters in their water farm was drawing too much current. It was operating abnormally. So they sent a field engineer out, they went and investigated, and they discovered that the inverter had a fault, it was operating inefficiently, it needed to be repaired. So the guys got their toolkits out and they did what they needed to do, and they did a piece of active maintenance on that inverter. What that managed maintenance meant was that inverter didn't fail, production continued, and it had no impact on the operation of that plant at all. The consequences, if that inverter had failed as it was likely to do without that data that showed that the power consumption was deviating from normal, was that the water pressure would have dropped. If the water pressure drops, the whole production line shuts down. If you think about vehicle manufacturing, tens of thousands of pounds every minute through a shutdown production line is quite significant. So, along with understanding where your energy is going and allowing you to have that optimised strategy around how you use your equipment, you can also have a preventive maintenance schedule, which means that you're going to avoid any impact on your operational activities as well. In a similar vein, occupancy monitoring. These, again, there's lots of different technology, lots of different sensors out there that allow you to understand where people go once they're on your real estate. People like to know where their space is being used, especially at the moment. It's particularly relevant. A lot of people are encouraging, obviously, return to office. There's a lot of strategies, there's a lot of ideas and thought leadership around why people would want to go, what they're going to do when they're there. It's about interactive collaboration, it's about meeting people, it's not about turning up to work, it is about turning up to work. There's many, many different approaches to supporting a return to work strategy. There isn't one that's right, there isn't one that's wrong. It depends upon the business and the business operations. But how do you know what the people are doing once they get back into the office? Usually people will know your perimeter occupancy information, your access control systems. You've got a way of determining how many people are coming into your space. But once they're there, where do they go? What do they do? Where do they spend their time? What space, what configuration of space works better than others? What configuration doesn't work? The banks of desks, the people sitting at them, or are they spending time in breakout areas and informal collaboration spaces? Are they sitting in the cafe and the breakout areas and having informal meetings? Are they sitting in meetings? Unless you've got the ability to understand where they are, you don't know. You can ask, but in my experience, you get a very emotive response. People think they know where they are. It doesn't often align with the subjective data that the sensors tell you. Once you know where people are preferring to spend their time, your space planners and your office managers and your managers of the space can start to make sure the space is optimised for the people returning. So instead of banks of desks which might never get used, you can reconfigure that space and make it useful. People will then want to come into the office, so you're getting the benefit of your space. You may see an area of the office that's never used. The occupancy data for a particular corner could be really, really low compared to other areas. And then you question why. And when you ask people, the chairs are broken, the monitors are broken, there's a drag from the window, the sunlight is too bright. All these different things which you won't discover unless you understand that that area is not being used. And it allows you then to take action and address that. So the experience that the people coming in and using your space are getting is optimised. If it's an optimised experience, they will want to come in, which means the estate and the real estate is proving value back to the company. It's not just sitting empty. Again, you can then layer these technologies on depending upon the level of detail you want to know. You may not need to know who's sitting at what desk. That data might be important, and often people will say, it'll be great, I want to know exactly where it's sitting. But the question is why? If you've got the data, so what? What does it actually mean? Unless you're going to act on it and you make a decision from that, then it becomes important. How many people are using meeting rooms? The typical scenario is that people can never book a meeting room, or historically, never book a meeting room, it's always booked, often PAs have got recurring meetings set, but no one's in them. People don't actually turn up to meetings. And the frustration from the other employees and from your colleagues is that they can't find a space. Now at the moment that's probably less of an issue because people are having informal collaborations, but if you walk along banks of meeting rooms, look your head under the frosted glass and see them empty, sensors can tell you that they're empty. They can release bookings if people don't turn up. Likewise, you can have an estate, a big floor with many meeting rooms on that support 10, 12, 15, 18 people. They may only be used once every 6 months. You may find through the data that people are using the meeting rooms for 20 minutes, half an hour, so much shorter periods, often booking for an hour, or a meeting room that can support a large number of people is only being used by 2 or 3 people. So that influences your strategy. It may be that you can put folding walls up and break those spaces into smaller groups. Maybe that you remove the meeting rooms and put some informal bean bags and cool things to encourage people. But you've got the data to know, you've got the data to support your decision-making process. So similar to energy, where once you understand where it's going, you can make a decision. Likewise with occupancy. They all have an effect on each other. The third one that's very common, very easy to address is obviously environmental monitoring. Hugely relevant at the moment. Very simply, you can understand what the environment within your space is doing. There's a whole wealth of technologies that can measure all sorts of different things. There's a lot of research, there's a lot of study material out there that informs high levels of CO2, affects operational efficiency, reduces attention span, all those kind of things. So you can then have your building react according to the CO2 levels. You can have, obviously, you can manage the temperature in Germany at the moment. Obviously, there's a cap on commercial maximum temperature that the building should operate on. You can understand how the building is reacting and the environment that's going on, and are you providing an environment in an appropriate way? If you've got a large office environment, you've got multiple floors, and you're seeing through the occupancy information that people are spreading themselves quite sort of thoroughly across all the different floors. You've got 10 people there, 5 people there, 6 people there. Very low percentage occupancy rates, yet you're heating and lighting the whole building. That doesn't really make sense. A strategy could be that you encourage people as part of culture to fill up certain floors, and you leave certain floors on standby. You can only do that with data if you know who's coming in, so you've got some form of resource scheduling, some hoteling systems. You can predict who's coming in. Once you've got your occupancy information over an extended period, you can trend when you expect people to come in. Effects of weather, public transport impact, all those kind of things will affect how your building will be used. And if you can plan for that and only provide an appropriate environment in the areas that you need it to, then you'll be eminently more successful. And obviously, your building will become a lot more efficient. You'll have a healthy building, and you'll have a very positive visitor and employee experience. Obviously, 3 different and distinct technologies. People will come up to stand and they'll ask, where do we begin, where do we start? And there isn't a right way. There isn't a particular area that we say, right, we can start with energy and then move on to this, and start with occupancy. Everyone's got a different objective, a different strategy, and everyone's at a different place on that journey. Nobody's starting from the same place. So there isn't a specific solution that's going to address, it's going to be the first step. Understanding what your current culture is, what your current infrastructure environment looks like, what systems you've already got in place. Often there are BMS systems that are recording and measuring a lot of information. There's kit out there already that's providing data that you're not necessarily making best use of because you're maybe not aware that it's there. Once you've understood where you are, what your starting point is, then the first thing is deciding what you want to address first. Do you want to understand occupancy so that you know how your estate is actually being populated, so you can target specific areas? Do you want to see where your energy is going because you feel that that can achieve some really quick CSR goals and satisfy an initial objective or strategy that you've got going on? Do you want to understand the environment because you want to encourage people to come back? And at the moment, the trend that we're seeing is people are more likely to want to travel into the office because then you pay, or the company's paying for the heating and the lighting, you're not having to pay for it at home because of the challenges around obviously the energy costs. But if that is the case, you need to know, you need to make sure that environment is appropriate for them. Turn the thermostat down a couple of degrees based on, how many people are there because it's comfortable for them. Have floors that maybe operate at a very slightly higher temperature so people can see and understand what those different environments are like. So you're accommodating different practices. Some people prefer it warm, some people prefer it cold. If you're providing opportunity for people to experience your buildings in that way, you're giving them the best possible experience, and ultimately they will be much more likely to engage in that real estate, and you're getting the value out of it. And obviously, to begin, you just got to start. You can get really ambitious with plans. People can start thinking about an entire global enterprise infrastructure of IoT, and it can become really quite complicated. And there's nothing wrong with that. Or you can start with a couple of dozen sensors monitoring a simple area on the floor, so you understand and see if the data that's coming through is actually going to be relevant to you. There's no wrong place. You just have to actually begin. A couple of conferences I've been to, people saying you can't boil an ocean, you can't start a company. That's fine, but starting somewhere, thinking about what you want to achieve and how you want to do it, what's necessary to be put in place to help you do that. Once you've taken that first step, this is a journey, understand what the learning is telling you, you've gone through the OODA loop, you've put your act in, and you're observing the outcome of the benefits. Has it achieved what you wanted it to achieve? Has it been successful? Has it been more successful? Has it given you a completely different perspective? And if so, what do you need to do then? Okay? So that's pretty much the end of this. As I say, we can talk for hours about all the different nuances of things, but at a very top level, IoT forms the basis, it's the foundation of a strategy that gives you the data to make an informed business intelligence-led strategy to apply within your smart buildings. So I'm happy to take questions if that left any room for doubt.